Welcome to Carey Open, a podcast where we open a window into the world of Carey Baptist College. This episode is a recording from our chapel gathering called Karakia.
So I'm wondering about leadership and when you've experienced amazing leadership that has brought out the very best in you and the others around you. I know that I'm really grateful to have served under such leaders, but that's not the only kind of leadership that we see and experience, is it? We are living through a time when we are witnessing firsthand examples of leadership driven by ego and power, where we see power exercised recklessly for the benefit of some and at great cost to others. Leadership that is quite literally destabilizing and polarizing the globe. How do we respond to that? When power is exercised in ways that threaten your life or your neighbour or your nation, how do you respond? Especially when those stop being theoretical questions and become realities that you and your whānau have to face. Hunkering down and hoping it doesn't affect you personally feels like it could be an option. Wielding whatever power you've got in any way that you can to protect yourself, protect your family, almost feels like that could be legitimate. What does it look like to lead well, to model a different way of being, to take the costly road that seeks the flourishing of all, to be faithful in times such as these? This morning, as we begin our journey in chapter 1 of 1 Kings, we're going to have presented to us different portraits of the ultimate form of leadership, the king. This is a time in Israel, a very rare time as it turns out, when we have a united monarchy under King David's rule. We have both the southern and the northern kingdoms. But David is old and at the end of his reign. And the question that's lurking underneath the text the whole way through is, who will be the king? Who will sit on David's throne? Perhaps even who is truly king here? And as we begin, we need to remember it's actually not the beginning. Kings is partway through this much longer story about the rise of a line of kings. And the way it's presented to us in the 4 books is a bit like the way they took Tolkien's Hobbit and they broke it, this one story, into 4 movies. And I feel like we're up to maybe movie 3. The story of the kings and the prophets who call them to account are spread across 4 separate books in the Bible. And by the time we start in chapter 1 of 1 Kings, we are a good way through the story that started in 1 Samuel. And perhaps this continuation of the story catches us in an unexpected moment. The story begins with the prophet Eli and the birth of Samuel. This is in 1 Samuel. Samuel will become a great prophet and lead Israel. But tragically, at the end of Samuel's life, it becomes obvious that his sons who've taken up leadership in his place are not going to follow in his ways. In fact, they seek dishonest gain, they take bribes, and as a result, the elders of Israel ask Samuel for a king to lead them instead. At that time, the Lord warns the people through Samuel. He says, if you reject me, the Lord, as your king, know what it will mean. And I'm paraphrasing here from 1 Samuel 8:11-17. He says this is what a king is going to do. He's going to take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses. He's going to make them run in front of him. He's going to assign them in huge numbers to the military. He's going to take your daughters to be perfumers and bakers. He's going to take the best Well, the best of everything. Vineyards, olive groves, grain, your servants, the best cattle. You'll become his slaves. But the people still want a king. And so they get first Saul and then David. David, a man after God's own heart. David, a man deeply flawed who fails abysmally with leading his own family. Here comes the portrait of kings. 3, maybe 4 of them, given to us in this first chapter of 1 Kings. I think given to leave us pondering, among other things, true kingship. Let's see what you think. It's a bit of a shock when we pick up the story. King David, so old and weak, he's unable to get warm. Magnificent king, lover, warrior, the one who danced before the ark. What's it like for you to be old and frail? Surely you know your time is ending. Why are you still holding on to power? Why haven't you chosen a successor? Don't you know the peril you've put the kingdom in? King David, can you really call yourself that now? Who's really running your kingdom? When they brought you Abishag, the beautiful virgin, to wait on you, to lie with you, was it then that you found that even that could not reinvigorate you, rouse you back to life and power? Was it then that you knew the kingship was slipping from your fingers? Or were you still in denial? Just as you did not know Abishag, it seems you did not know what was going on in your kingdom. Your son Adonijah did. Handsome man that he is. Next in line for the throne now his older brothers are gone. Adonijah knows for sure now what he's been thinking for a while. Whoop, whoop. The kingship is so close he can taste it. He's not just dreaming about it now. He is getting ready for it. He knows you won't chastise him, King David, even if you realize what he's up to. What kind of king would you be, Adonijah? Oh, here's a hint. Chariots and horses. Flashbacks to Absalom, anyone? God's warning echoing in anyone else's ears? 50 men running in front of you. And you're singing at the top of your voice. Oh, I just can't wait to be king. No one's saying do that. No one's saying be there. No one's saying stop that. No one's saying see here. Free to run around all day. Here's the key bit. Free to do it all my way. And, thank you, this guy, he's not just a pretty face, is he? He's organised. He's gathered Joab and Abiathar. Military commander, check. Priest, check. The gang who ran with his father back in the day when he ruled Judah, check. Then he knows they have got his back. So it's only a matter of time, really. What does he do? Sacrifices some sheep, oxen, cattle, invites all his brothers, all the royal officials of Judah, but not the prophet Nathan, not Benaiah, or the warriors, or his brother Solomon. Why not? It was definitely a mistake not to invite Nathan. Not that he was likely to have taken up that invitation, mind, because next minute, where's Nathan? Oh, he's chatting with the mother of the only king's son who's been excluded from Adonijah's party. So, here we have King David, old and weary, wannabe king Adonijah, celebrating his upcoming reign, and before we have Solomon presented to us as another contender for the throne, we get to go behind the scenes. We get to see the intrigue and power plays that are happening behind closed doors, the reality of grit and politics and the making of kings. And at the center of it all is Nathan, the prophet. Nathan, who earlier in David's reign confronted the king over his adultery with Bathsheba and the murder of her husband, Uriah. Nathan, who on the far side of David's repentance and the loss of his first child with Bathsheba, was sent by the Lord to tell David and Bathsheba that their second child, Solomon, was loved by the Lord and to name him Jedediah. Here's Nathan now, approaching Bathsheba, an obvious ally, who he's going to send to King David. Nathan instructs Bathsheba, question the king, asking him, "Didn't you swear to me that Solomon would be king?" When did you do that, David? We won't dwell on what it was like for Bathsheba, bowing before the king in the presence of the young virgin Abishag, another young, powerless woman summoned to serve the king, willingly or not. But we will pause to admire Bathsheba's gumption. She doesn't ask the king anything. Instead, she declares, "You swore to me by the Lord your God, my son Solomon shall succeed me as king, and he shall sit on my throne." And she doesn't stop there. Seemingly unafraid of a little exaggeration when called for, she plunges on. "Adonijah has become king, even though you, my lord the king, do not know it." And then she recounts the sacrifices and the invitations, noting that Solomon, the king's servant, was not invited. It seems likely that the way she frames this is intended to stir memories of another son and of other betrayals, and to frame the situation in a way that makes it seem like a challenge to King David himself, not just a dispute about succession. And then she says this, "But you, my lord the king, the eyes of all Israel are on you to tell them who shall sit on the throne of my lord the king after him. The power is in your hands, David." And did you catch that? All Israel. Not just the loyal Judaites who have flocked to Adonijah, but north and south, the whole kingdom. There is much at stake. And she doesn't shy away from mentioning that Adonijah's rule will most likely be the end for her and Solomon. As planned, the prophet Nathan arrives in perfect time to corroborate Bathsheba's story. Nathan also implies Adonijah is mid-coronation, celebrating, and has already become king. But the ever-clever Nathan phrases it as if David knows what is going on, and that he, Nathan, wonders why he and the other king's loyal advisors have been left out of the loop. It's now that the feeling at David's bedside changes. What Abishag's presence has failed to do for David, Bathsheba and Nathan's words seem to achieve. King David materializes out of the fog of time, galvanized into action. Where is the old and dying king now? Sharp-minded, determined, King David gets his mojo back. He's about to declare he did indeed swear that Solomon would succeed him and sit on the throne in his place. He's about to give specific, detailed instructions about Solomon's coronation and Solomon being placed on the king's own mule, about anointing him king, about trumpets, about yelling, about long live King Solomon. But before he does, he says, "As the Lord lives, who has saved my life from every adversity." Is this King David a man after God's own heart, emerging once again, recognizing God's hand in Nathan and Bathsheba's action, saving him, David, and the whole kingdom from his own negligent inaction, his own inability to parent his children, fulfilling the promise that God made to him, that the house of David will be established forever, despite his failings? Is it? And what about the portrait of this third king, the soon-to-be king, King Solomon? He isn't called to the king's bedside or included in the plans. He appears passive in this story, swept along in the decisions and actions of others. Do we see God's hand in this too? Is God working in the mess of everyday life, even the yuck of power plays and political wrangling? Is God's hand in Solomon's rise? I wonder. I wonder when I see where this story goes, even when I see where Solomon's reign begins. And despite wrestling with this text for a good number of weeks, I have still got lingering questions. As Solomon rides on King David's mule and is led to Gihon, as the priests, Zadok, anoint Solomon with oil from the horn in the temple, as they blow the trumpet and all the people say, "Long live King Solomon," as the people go up playing pipes and rejoicing with a joy so great that the earth shakes from their noise, as Adonijah and his cronies are told by Jonathan that Solomon now sits on the king's throne and that King David himself has bowed in worship and said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who today has granted one of my offsprings to sit on my throne and permitted me to witness it." As Adonijah's guests scatter and Adonijah himself grabs the horns of the altar in fear that Solomon will kill him, and even as Solomon spares Adonijah and sends his home, I'm still not sure. Is this the king who is to sit upon the throne? Standing where I am now, in the shadow of Mangakeke, I find my eyes don't linger on this third portrait of a king, King Solomon. Despite all his wisdom and greatness to come, as I look out at this city, the hopes and the dreams that I have of the nation for our tamariki and our mokopuna, what they will inherit, it's not the prosperity of Solomon that I'm looking for. And as I think of our whānau and our church communities across the motu, all they are already doing, all that it is possible for us to do together, I wonder at the impact of a continued and deepening commitment to our te tiriti hikoi, to the hard work of reconciliation, of movement towards genuine covenant relationship and all that could mean for our nation. I think of our church communities bearing witness as sisters and brothers who stand together for the genuine flourishing of all as far as possible in our now but not yet kingdom. Is this not even more of a gift in our fracturing world? Despite being costly hard work, is this now not even more necessary than it has been? And as to the king who can lead us to this place, David, Adonijah, Solomon? No. I look back and see another king of the house of David, one who rode into Jerusalem not on a mule, but a colt, with crowds spreading their coats on the road, rejoicing and saying, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord." I see this other son of David, not exalting himself, no horses and chariots to be seen, not anointed with oil by a priest, but anointed with tears and perfume by a woman. One who did enjoy a good meal, but who wasn't found with the movers and shakers, but with the marginalised and the overlooked. Was he handsome? We don't know. But he healed, he released, he brought life, he washed feet. Here he comes, not commanding, not riding in pomp, anticipating all that will be his, but rather weeping over Jerusalem, who does not recognize the time of God's visitation. This king will give up truly everything, including his life, for the sake of his people, all people, for the redemption of all things. And he will go all the way to his death before he is exalted to the right hand of the Father, ushering in a very different kind of kingdom. Who will be king? That's the question that echoes down to us, down the ages, to us this morning. And it's a question I think we have to ask ourselves over and over again in every aspect of our life, our study, our work, our ministry. Who is the king? Who are we enthroning, and why? After whom will we model our leadership and our service so that it bears witness to the true King and the presence of his kingdom? How will we show who is truly King?
The Baptist NZ Podcast Network.